Season 1 of Euphoria follows Rue Bennett and her fellow high school student friends through their experiences with relationships, identity, and trauma. Rue is a 17-year-old recovering drug addict who's dealt with lifelong mental disorders and has yet to fully process her father's death from cancer. Rue's constant fluctuation between relapse and recovery is a struggle for not only her, but her mother Leslie and her younger sister Gia. Rue's childhood best friend is Lexi, although their relationship has become strained. Lexi tries to be there for Rue, but is constantly pushed away by Rue's self-destructive tendencies. Lexi's older sister is Cassie, who's in a relationship with college freshman Christopher McKay. Cassie has been grappling with being abandoned by her father at an early age, while McKay struggles under the immense pressure his own father puts on him to be a professional athlete. These issues lead to a lot of friction in their relationship, including McKay being hesitant to label Cassie as his girlfriend, and Cassie cheating on McKay with fellow high schooler Daniel, leading to Cassie eventually getting pregnant. Another high school student is Kat Hernandez, who is growing more confident in her body. After unknowingly being filmed while losing her virginity, Kat discovers the massive money that can be made by becoming a cam girl, and so she starts posting pictures and videos of herself online for money, while also continuing to experiment and explore her body. Eventually, Kat meets and begins dating her classmate Ethan, but her insecurities and paranoia constantly create conflict between the two. Star quarterback Nate Jacobs is an abusive bully, using violence and anger to mask his sexual insecurities. He's in an on-again, off-again relationship with Maddie Perez, who, during a break in their relationship, has sex with a college student named Tyler in front of everyone at McKay's house party. Upon learning of this, Nate goes into a rage, breaking into Tyler's home and beating him to near death. When Nate and Maddie rekindle their relationship, Nate gets angry with Maddie and grabs her by the throat, leaving bruises. When those bruises are discovered and reported to the police, Nate breaks back into Tyler's home to force him into falsely confessing to the crime. Nate's father, Cal, has his own sexual secrets that he hides from his family, namely his pattern of filming himself having sex with young gay men and trans women. His most recent sexual encounter is with the new-in-town high school student Jules. When Rue meets Jules, she is instantly smitten. Much to Rue's dismay, Jules begins a texting relationship with a man she met online named Tyler. Jules and Tyler exchange nudes, but when they finally meet in person, Tyler is revealed to be Nate, who threatens Jules to keep her mouth shut about her sexual encounter with his father, or he will send her photos to the police. The betrayal leaves Jules shell-shocked, but she finds comfort in Rue, and the two kiss. While Rue wants this to lead to a relationship, Jules isn't quite ready to commit, and even meets a new girl named Anna while on a getaway night out in the city. Meanwhile, Rue's struggle with sobriety takes a turn for the worse. Her close friend and drug dealer Fezco begins to worry for Rue's well-being and refuses to sell any more drugs to her. But that is complicated when his violent supplier Mouse shows up and forces Rue to try fentanyl. When Rue discovers that Nate had pretended to be Tyler to threaten Jules, Rue turns to Fezco to intimidate the bully. In retaliation, Nate reports Fez to the police, forcing Fez and his younger brother Ashtray to dispose of their stash, putting the pair in a huge debt to Mouse. As the season comes to a close, Cassie gets an abortion with her family by her side. Kat and Ethan reconcile, Fezco robs Mouse's supplier to pay his debts, Nate and Maddie peacefully break up, and Rue confronts Nate over his threats toward Jules, making her own threats to expose Cal. In the end, Rue and Jules make plans to run away together, but Rue backs out at the last minute and leaves Jules to depart on the train alone. Back at home, a heartbroken Rue snorts oxycodone. In the two-part special centering on Rue and Jules, Rue meets with her Narcotics Anonymous sponsor Ali to recount her relapse. Ali imports a lot of wisdom on Rue and explains that forgiving oneself is a key of change and that he has faith in Rue's continued improvement. Meanwhile, Jules is in therapy where it's revealed that her mother is an addict, which in turn complicates her feelings for the addict Rue. Despite this, Jules admits to loving Rue, but she is also still in love with the fake Tyler that Nate had pretended to be. In Season 2 of Euphoria, things get even more complicated for Rue Bennett and her fellow classmates. Fezco's younger brother Ashtray kills their supplier Mouse in self-defense, putting the drug dealer duo in a very precarious situation. Rue tags along with Fez as he forges a deal with a new supplier, an unassuming but very threatening woman named Lori. With his business affairs squared away, Fezco turns his attention to his personal life. Faye, the girlfriend of Fez's friend Custer, moves in with him when Custer needs to lay low from the police. Fez finally gets his revenge on Nate Jacobs for sending the police to raid his apartment for drugs by viciously beating him at a house party. And Fez even begins developing a romantic relationship with his crush Lexi. Cassie begins secretly sleeping with Nate and quickly becomes obsessed with him, though this leaves her racked with guilt due to Nate being her best friend Maddie's ex-boyfriend. This is all complicated even further when Nate rekindles his relationship with Maddie, keeping his tryst with Cassie a secret. Meanwhile, Nate's father drunkenly comes out to his family and leaves them to prioritize himself. And then there's Kat, who begins to lose interest in her boyfriend Ethan and fakes a terminal illness to try to break up with him. Ethan sees through this lie and ends the relationship himself. Elsewhere, Rue rekindles her relationship with Jules, who is unaware that Rue is slipping further into addiction. Not helping matters is the fact that Rue befriends new kid Elliot, who secretly enables her drug habit. In her continued spiral, Rue pays a visit to Lori and offers to become a drug dealer in order to secure $10,000 worth of drugs. As Elliot grows closer to Rue and Jules, he begins to feel guilty about his part in enabling Rue's addiction. After developing a romantic relationship with Jules, Elliot confesses to her that he and Rue have been doing drugs together. Jules alerts Rue's mom Leslie, who destroys Rue's massive drug stash. This sends Rue into a full-blown breakdown, angrily cutting ties with Jules and Elliot while destroying her own home. While Leslie tries to take Rue to rehab, Rue instead flees to Lexi and Cassie's house. When Leslie arrives to stage an intervention, Rue reveals to Maddie that Cassie and Nate were sleeping with each other, causing a fight that serves as enough of a distraction for Rue to escape. Rue then takes refuge at Lori's home, where she is given morphine to help with her withdrawals, though the drug dealer also insinuates that Rue could be sold into prostitution if she doesn't pay back Lori the $10,000 that is owed. Following this traumatic and chaos-fueled day, Rue returns home to seek treatment. Following the blow-up between Maddie, Cassie, and Nate, and his father's departure, Nate decides to take his family's future into his own hands. Maddie has a copy of a sex tape that Cal had secretly filmed of himself with Jules, and to ensure she never leaks it and ruins the Jacobs family name, Nate holds Maddie and himself at gunpoint to retrieve it. Nate then pays a visit to Jules and gives her the tape, apologizing for all of the terrible things he's done to her, and confessing everything he told her when catfishing her was the truth. Amidst all of this interpersonal conflict, Lexi has been writing a school play chronicling her perspective of the lives of her family and friends. During the play's performance, there are a variety of reactions from the story's subjects. Maddie begins to soften on her anger toward Cassie. Rue and Jules reevaluate their feelings for each other, and Nate becomes enraged at a homoerotic musical number centered around him and the high school football team, leading him to breaking up with Cassie. This causes Cassie to run up on stage to publicly confront Lexi for embarrassing her. This escalates further when their mother runs on stage to break up the fight, while Maddie runs on stage to fight Cassie. Lexi's big moment is teetering toward disaster, but Rue rallies the crowd into a chant for Lexi, coaxing her to continue on with the play. Unfortunately, the seat Lexi saved for Fezco goes unfilled, as the drug dealer is having major problems of his own. Faye's boyfriend Custer becomes an informant for the police in their investigation over Mouse's murder, and he arrives at Fez's apartment to try to record incriminating evidence. Faye warns Fez, but Ashtray is unaware of the situation and thinks killing Custer is the solution to their problems. As a SWAT team prepares to storm the apartment, Fez plans on taking the fall for Mouse and Custer's deaths. But Ashtray has different plans and locks himself in the bathroom with an arsenal of weapons. As the SWAT team bursts in and Fez pleads for his brother to stop, Ashtray opens fire. The police kill Ashtray and Fez is shot in the stomach during the crossfire before being arrested. Meanwhile, Nate pays a visit to his father. Cal finally apologizes to his son for all of the emotional trauma he has caused, but it is too late to mend their relationship, as Nate has already alerted the authorities about Cal's history of secretly recording his sexual escapades with partners of varying ages. As the season comes to a close, Rue forgives Elliot for his involvement in her intervention and thanks him for saving her life. Her relationship with Jules, on the other hand, is a bit more complicated, as Rue is left wondering if she is finally ready to move on from her first love. In the end, Rue narrates that she stayed sober for the rest of the school year, and though she doesn't know if that sobriety will last forever, right now she is trying. In season 3 of Euphoria, 5 years have passed since high school graduation. Rue now finds herself forced into the employ of Lori, with the interest on her debt making it impossible for her to escape the drug dealer's clutches. In an effort to pay down her debts, Rue brings Faye into Lori's operation, where the two serve as drug mules and live on a compound with Lori and her white supremacist family. While Faye strikes up a relationship with Lori's Nazi nephew Wayne, Rue continues to harbor feelings for her teenage love Jules, who is now an aspiring artist living a lavish lifestyle funded by her married sugar daddy Ellis. After a mishap while crossing the US-Mexico border, Rue is forced to carry out a trafficking run on foot. On this journey, Rue is briefly taken in by a kind Christian family in Texas, which she later tells her friend and sponsor Ali has turned her to God and helped her with her sobriety. Rue also finds comfort in frequent phone calls to the incarcerated Fezco, and though she encourages Lexi to similarly check in on their old friend, Lexi can't bring herself to reach out to her former crush. While delivering drugs to a strip club, Rue becomes impressed with its owner Alamo Brown. When one of Alamo's strippers dies due to an overdose from Lori's fentanyl-laced drugs, he strikes a deal to recruit Rue into his employ as a floor manager for his club. While working for Alamo, Rue learns to both fear and respect his business practices, and revels in her newfound autonomy away from Lori's servitude. Rue also strikes up a brief romance with a stripper named Angel, who spirals into a drug addiction after the overdose of her friend. Alamo tasks Rue with dropping off Angel at rehab, where Rue is left shaken by the sketchy appearance of the clinic. Elsewhere, Nate is struggling at the helm of his father's construction company as a massive project he has bet everything on is derailed by the discovery of an endangered flower on the property. Complicating things even more for Nate is his engagement to Cassie, who pressures him into spending money they don't have for a more extravagant wedding. Nate keeps secret how serious their financial issues are, including being indebted to a threatening loan shark named Naz. In order to help pay for her dream wedding, Cassie turns to making sexual content for OnlyFans, which Nate laments as degrading. Following Cassie's dream wedding, Nate is brutally confronted by Naz, who cuts off his toe as a threat to pay off $1 million debt, or suffer much grislier consequences. Maddie is now working as an agent's assistant in Hollywood, though gets no respect from her boss. Seeing an opportunity in her old friend, Maddie takes on Cassie as her client and helps her better market her explicit OnlyFans content. Upset with Nate over his financial lies, Cassie decides to follow Maddie's advice by moving out of their home and publicly seducing a popular social media star, leading to her popularity skyrocketing on OnlyFans and creating a massive financial windfall. Meanwhile, as Rue continues working with Alamo, she is apprehended by the DEA and forced to serve as a secret informant to bring down Lori's entire operation. But this would prove easier said than done, as Alamo finds himself in an escalating war with Lori that threatens to ruin their business partnership. When Lori spitefully has a live pig released in the strip club, Alamo tasks his loyal right-hand man Bishop to kill Lori's beloved pet bird Paladin. As Rue tries to mend the business relationship between Lori and Alamo in order to facilitate a DEA drug bust, one of the strippers at the club, Magic, grows suspicious. But before Magic can expose Rue's treachery, Lori's family seek violent revenge for the death of Paladin by raiding the club, shooting its manager Big Eddie, and robbing Alamo's safe. On Magic's warnings, Alamo confronts Rue and threatens to kill her. Rue bargains for her life, agreeing to help Alamo steal back his belongings from Lori and recruiting Faye into the plan by promising to pay her a cut of the spoils. Meanwhile, Lori stages a meeting with Alamo, agreeing to give him back the contents of the safe if he agrees to smuggle a shipment of fentanyl from Mexico. If Alamo refuses, Lori threatens to turn over the safe's contents to the police. And so Alamo agrees, though still threatens Rue to carry out the heist on Lori's compound, or else Bishop will kill her mother Leslie. As Rue feels completely overwhelmed by the dangers closing in on her, she gets into a car accident that results in a tree being set on fire. Rue believes that, like Moses in the burning bush, this is a sign from God, bringing her peace amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, Alamo crosses paths with Rue's old friend Maddie. Despite Alamo's danger, Maddie sees the man as a business opportunity, striking a partnership to turn some of the strippers in his employ into OnlyFans OnlyFans stars. Elsewhere, Cassie begins sending her estranged husband Nate money to help pay off his debt to Naz. Unfortunately, Nate's repayment is too slow, leading to Naz next cutting off his ring finger as further threat. Lexi is now working as a production assistant on a popular TV series LA Nights, though struggling to make a good impression on her boss Patty. Maddie pressures Lexi to help Cassie score an audition for a bit part on LA Nights, where Cassie surprisingly impresses the entire production team. While filming her one scene for the show, Cassie has an emotional breakdown and reveals her and Nate's violent struggles with Naz. Patty believes this breakdown to be an improvised monologue and is so impressed that she decides to trust Lexi to write the plot into the show and give Cassie a starring role. To avoid any possible sort of public scandal and legitimize her as an actress, Patty forces Cassie to permanently delete her OnlyFans account. Unfortunately, after Cassie deletes her profile, network executives decide to fire her for being a sex worker and cast a different actress in her place. As Naz and his gang kidnap Nate and threaten his life, and with her OnlyFans account now permanently deleted, Cassie is left with no means of saving her husband. Maddie steps in to help Cassie, forcing her to do everything that she says. And so Cassie seduces the heartthrob star of LA Nights, Dylan Reed, and steals his phone to post about their sexual activities on his social media, leading to an instant popularity of her new OnlyFans account. Unfortunately, Nate is then buried alive and left for dead unless Cassie pays up immediately. Needing $1 million, Maddie turns to Alamo for help, and in the process accidentally reveals Rue's involvement with the DEA. Instead of paying Naz, Alamo shoots him dead, while still demanding that Maddie now pay him back the $1 million debt. As Nate's coffin is dug up, Cassie is horrified to discover that a rattlesnake had slithered into the air hole and struck her husband repeatedly with its venomous bite, resulting in his gruesome death. Meanwhile, Rue seeks Faye's help in stealing back the contents of the strip club safe, hoping to split the money and escape as the DEA brings down both Alamo and Lori during their drug deal. Unfortunately, Rue discovers that the safe did not in fact contain any money, but instead held the IDs of countless women from Alamo's employ, including Angel, who had been sold off by the mogul into horrific fates. Realizing there's no money to be had, Faye believes that Rue has tricked her and decides to remain loyal to her Nazi boyfriend Wayne, alerting him to Rue's treachery. As Rue flees, she is aided in her escape by Alamo's henchman G, allowing the pair to successfully extract the incriminating evidence from the safe. For her efforts, Alamo pays Rue a large cash reward and gives her a bottle of pain medicine to care for the wounds she endured from Lori's family. Meanwhile, Big Eddie arrives at Lori's compound to complete the drug deal, leading to the awaiting DEA forces to swarm the area. Wayne and Faye manage to evade arrest, though Lori refuses to go to prison with the rest of her family and instead decides to go out on her own terms. When the DEA investigates Eddie's car, they discover that there are no drugs, as he had secretly swapped vehicles with Bishop, who delivers Lori's shipment to an ecstatic and victorious Alamo. Ali is at first happy to invite Rue into his home, relieved that her mission from Alamo ended in success. Unfortunately, he then finds her dead the next morning, having died from an overdose, though finding peace with a vision of reuniting with Fezco and reconciling with her mother Leslie. When Ali tests the pain medicine, he discovers the drugs were actually fentanyl, given to Rue by Alamo with the intention of killing her as revenge for being a DEA snitch. Following the news of Rue's death, a mournful Jules becomes re-inspired in her art, while Lexi finds comfort in the Bible the newly repentant Rue had left in her care. Cassie finds support in Maddie following the death of Nate, and together they plan to start their own business managing a portfolio of OnlyFans models. Unfortunately, Maddie still owes a massive debt to Alamo, which she is forced to pay off with not just money, but sexual favors. As Maddie arrives at the strip club to appease Alamo, so too does Ali, turning away from his life as a spiritual sponsor for addicts and instead seeking violent revenge for the late Rue. Alamo agrees to engage Ali in a duel to the death, but while attempting to cheat and fire early, Alamo discovers that Bishop had betrayed him and intentionally removed his gun's bullets. This gives Ali the opportunity to kill Alamo and escape the club with his life. While Maddie departs with Bishop, free from Alamo's grasp. In the end, Ali heads to the Texas ranch that had inspired Rue's turn to God, returning to his own faith and finding comfort in knowing that Rue is finally at peace. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and why not check out this recommended video while you're at it.